We're all set. So, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I was sharing with Tom and Norm that in elementary school, my teacher would provide us all with bazooka bubblegum on Friday the 13th. I do not have any for you, and it would be hard for me to distribute. So, happy Friday the 13th. May you enjoy your bazooka bubblegum today. So, the main focus this morning is making sure that you all have a presentation and are in agreement of the what will be presented on Tuesday night. There was some, I want to make sure that there was, I answered questions. This is the regular meeting of the HRRC, and the Planning Commission has been invited to it. So there's only one meeting. You don't have to, because otherwise there'd been a meeting Tuesday night and a meeting Wednesday night. That seemed excessive. So the Planning Commission has been invited to the HRRC meeting. So only one presentation. There will be a future presentation on the 10th at the HRA. I am not sure yet about, I know this will be on the agenda for the City Council on the 15th, but I don't know if there will be a presentation because as is, that meeting is expected to go till 1 a.m., even without a presentation. So I don't know if they will want it to be on the consent agenda since it's the same body as the HRA, and that the presentation will be at that meeting. So it may not need to be at both, but that is yet to be determined. My concern is your item, this would be under reports and presentations, which is before public hearings. So it wouldn't be at the 2 a.m. mark, but it could conceivably be at the 10 p.m. mark. So I'm gonna work with the city manager on figuring out that piece.
The HRA meeting is when?
The HRA meeting is December 10th at 7:30 in the morning. And even though the agenda for that meeting is robust, starting at 7:30 in the morning, the latest they tend to go is 9:30 in the morning, and this would be one of the earlier items, and clearly you don't need to stay on for the whole meeting. But it doesn't bring us to 2 a.m. So I want to make sure then some of the emails that I've seen have been regarding what is the emphasis of this presentation. So Dan, I'm gonna let you know, I'm not preparing it and I'm not presenting it, so this is kind of in your hands. You're all your hands, so I'm gonna open up the discussion for you all to run with.
Before we get into that, because there's been at least 3 of us have commented that there's things missing from the report.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we, when does the report go to the HRA?
Report, so after you meet on the 17th, you with the commissions, you will be reconvening in the morning on the 18th to talk about their feedback and some of those other items in the report, some of those other edits. So the final report.
What other edits? The ones we've talked about.
The ones you talked about. The ones that have been going on via email.
Okay.
To make sure that they get all incorporated. I mean, I think she's starting to incorporate them now, but so you can have a more robust discussion regarding that. It will be sent to the HRA on the 7th. So so they're going to be doing all their formatting and putting in this new program. So it's not a Word program. I don't understand graphic arts. Probably starting the week of the 23rd. So I think that the week of the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, that's when she's going to have to finalize the language. Okay. So she can send it on.
Okay. So my concern, I'm sure I'm not the only one, is that when we look at the final draft, excuse me, that's what ends up becoming the document that's submitted to the
right. So she wrote on that this was a draft. So I sent out an email this morning that I would not be surprised if you haven't seen that. With your concern, Dan, I have sent the photo, the picture of the changes on to Carrie, the Community Development Director, because he is the staff person for the Planning Commission, because that seems like that might be of interest to them, and letting him decide whether or not that is something that gets sent to them prior to Tuesday. And some of those other changes I think we will discuss. You know, some of it's formatting, and aside from the executive summary, which formatting was pretty much established by this team, some of it is was edited for readability. So as far as what's being bulleted and what's being in paragraph form, there is some license that's being given on making some of those determinations. Factual information, Steve, I know you had some corrections with numbers and clarity of graphs and what needs to be included. Those will, you know, be addressed.
Okay.
Tom? Oh, and the pictures. Making sure pictures are labeled properly.
Yes. I caught one of the pictures, and then I think I had a better bus picture than
okay.
her.
Yeah, so you know, making sure things are factually accurate and that content is accurate. Clearly, that needs to be addressed. Formatting, we're going to leave some of that to some creative license.
Got it. Okay.
So I want to make sure that you know what you all are all in agreement for what needs to happen Tuesday night and what you are going to be presenting. So one of the big questions was, well, I'll let you take it from here.
I sent an email out on the 7th. A couple responded to it, but not all of you. So anyone who hasn't responded to it about what you want Bernadette and I to present, can we get some feedback from you at this point?
Before we jump into that, do we need to formally start our meeting and approve the agenda and all that stuff?
Yes. So would someone make a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May you have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Steph, are there minutes that need to be approved?
Yes.
I have a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Okay, I'll take that as a motion. May I have a second?
I second.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved overwhelmingly.
Enthusiastically, I would say.
Yes. Back to my question. The comments from those on the task force who haven't given us input yet as to what the presentation should look like.
How much time do we have on the agenda?
I would say a presentation of like 10 minutes and then another 10, 15 minutes possibly for discussion. They have other agenda items at night.
They what?
They have other agenda items at night, but you're first.
Okay. Is the agenda available?
Let me check. I will check that while you are discussing. I don't know if it's posted yet.
It wasn't as of yesterday, but
it might be getting posted today. And then I'll check.
Okay. And just to spur the discussion here, the other thing is that I didn't cover and no one covered in the responses, how they want Bernadette and I to split up the presentation.
Of the HRA.
The HRA, the Housing and Redevelopment Authority, they I can't quote it, but they address housing and economic development issues. That's their, so the city council deals with, you know, all infrastructure, roads, police, safety, you know, pretty much the running of the city. The HRA, we use those meetings to focus specifically on housing issues and economic development.
Do approval processes for housing go through the HRA?
Yes. So yesterday we had an HRA meeting, and I presented 2 housing proposals at that meeting that I will not be bringing to city council. They are approved.
But it's the same people in the case of Edina. I mean,
It's the same people.
Yeah.
So they used to be the same time. They're the same day. They used to be Tuesday evenings or whatever your evening it was. And so the city council would conclude and no one would leave their seats, and then the HRA would start. Well, what happened was sometimes meetings would go to 2 and 3 in the morning. And that's just not tenable for residents nor people, elected officials. So they split the day up. And so HRA meets Thursday morning, city council meets Thursday evening.
So it is, but it is the city council.
It's the city council, it's the same people.
Yes.
And is anyone else on it, or is it solely the city council?
Solely the city council.
So it's just a subset.
Yeah. I just want to add that that's not true in every city or county, but
Sure.
in the case of Edina and some other places, it is.
And it's not even a subset, Joe. It is the exact, it's 5 people. 5 people on the council, 5 people on the.
It's not a subset of people. It's a subset of issues that they go over. They're specifically reviewing housing and economic and development.
Yep.
Okay, I know you're all just dying to give some input on this, so I'm listening.
Well, one of the questions that was raised that I think you need to come to, is this purely a summary and you are presenting their findings, or are you guys going to be discussing areas of disagreement?
I think it should just be a summary. I also think that, as I was thinking about it, Stephanie, perhaps you'd be willing to share the PowerPoint that we used for the council when we did our little mid-time check-in, that we could just build off of that format and kind of city so it looks professional. And I'd be happy to work on inputting content if we have that as kind of a framework based on feedback from others on this group.
Certainly.
And I guess I'll just follow up with what I was saying. The reason I think that is I don't want to present this. I mean, we've put in so much work. I think hopefully everybody's proud of what we've produced at this point. I don't want it presented in a shroud of controversy. You know, I mean, I think if it comes out of our group with a controversial backstory, that it's going to be taken less seriously and perhaps undermine all the work that we've put in. So, I mean, certainly if people ask us questions, then I say, yes, let's address it. But I don't think we need to put that front and center as a key issue when people are, when we're presenting the report.
I
agree with the Bernadette. If we present any controversy, it's a sure way of killing what we've spent 18 months working on. So if they ask, yes, we will answer honestly, but we shouldn't open up with our disagreements.
Dan's original suggestion was to identify those areas where there was overwhelming agreement and those areas where was approval but less than overwhelming agreement. Stephanie, do we have a record of what the votes were for each of the goals and strategies?
Yes. But yes, as they were presented in July, they have been condensed because at that point, remember, you had 10 or 12 goals and strategies, and so we can condense them, and we join some of those groupings, but I have them in the uncondensed fashion. The wording is the same, it's just the layout is different.
Could you distribute those?
Yep.
Okay.
What's the, I mean, just why?
Yeah.
Well, if there are questions that come up, then the chairs ought to have that information. As I said in an email that I sent out, just as the city council, when they vote, it's a matter of record where how they voted, whether they are all in unison or whether it's a 4-to-1 vote. And I would not have a problem in putting that information in the report, because clearly there were areas that we were not all in agreement. And I think that it would be part of the open and transparent information that we provide to say, no, there was not overwhelming and unanimous agreement on all of the issues.
I guess I'm fine with saying that, but again, like, if we go through the report, we agree. I mean, I feel like it's kind of being a sore loser. Like, the group agreed and we put it in the report, and now we're moving on, and we need to ban behind this report. And if people are going to sit there and go to the council and kind of like, I feel like, say, well, I didn't actually agree to this, I was, outvoted, like, that to me undermines the credibility of the report. I mean, to me, it's, we agreed to the process up front without knowing what people were going to say. We agreed to the fist of 5. We agreed that we would get consent, that was good enough to include it in the report. And now we all need to stand behind it. And certainly if someone says, Norm, do you agree with this? You can say, well, no, but the majority of the group did. That's different than starting out by saying, well, here, let's go through all the items and all the votes. I mean, to me, that's a complete waste of our time. I mean, the point is to get this approved by the council or reviewed and taken seriously, not to air all of our dirty laundry as a committee. I mean,
well, I think that's different from what I just said. What I said was not to go individually and talk about how our individual feelings are, but to indicate in an open and transparent manner which items we felt so strongly about that it was a vote of 7-0, and which items were open to discussion where the vote was 5-2, 4-3, or whatever.
But what is the value of that?
Valuable.
If anybody wants that information, to Norm's point, it is part of our public record. We have recorded all these meetings. That information is available to any interested viewer, just as anyone can go back and review any city council meeting and see what the actual vote count was. But at the end of the day, all that matters is, was it approved or not approved by the city council? If it's approved, then it has the force of law and goes forward. If it's not approved, it's done. And that's essentially how I view our report. We worked, we debated, we voted. It's all part of the public record, and we have a product, and we should support that product.
I feel like those of you who are opposed to what I suggested are mischaracterizing what I did. So I can only speak for myself. I'm not complaining that I lost votes. I don't want to sink the project. But as Steve said in his email about it, there were tough debates, and it matters to the council because they may not implement things, and it matters how strongly the task force felt about individual items.
I totally disagree with that.
Can I make a suggestion here for a little bit of a change? Why don't we talk about our process a little bit, open up with our process, right? So they understand what we did, how we did it, how we solved disagreements, how we compromised, how we didn't compromise. Lay out our process so that they can say, oh, this is what they did, and this is what they came up with. And then, so that's a brief introduction into what we have done and where we've been. And then from there, start to address the key big issues, which are the goals and strategies. And then close with where we are today, which is an incomplete report, but that we are committed to getting to a complete report. We don't all agree to it, but there's nothing wrong with that. We can disagree and still be civil. We don't have to be divisive just because we have different opinions. I think those are all fine things to say, and particularly if their goal is housing and economic development, and this is supposed to be a housing report, I think that would be a fine thing to outline for them. I don't think they understand the. I don't know that they understand how hard this has been, and I would call them out. I would say, you know what? There wasn't a lot of direction. They provided very little direction, and we're hopeful that we met their expectations. And I think depending upon the city council member, we'll have met some expectations and we'll have struck out on others.
Tom?
Well, I agree with both Bernadette and Joe. Maybe talk about the process. Maybe we don't talk about the individual areas that were contentious. I mean, they picked the 7 of us, or 8 of us if you count Ferosa, and they knew that we wouldn't come up with a unanimous decision. And, you have people from the planning commission that are going to be there. They hear all the arguments that we have presented to each other all the time with different projects that come forward. And even if we all came out in total harmony, the citizens of Edina are going to come up with a diverse set of concerns or positions. So I don't think we need to wallow or to carry on about our differences, because they picked us because we all have very different experiences and expectations. And I think with this report, plus the Maxfield study, which also gives some legitimacy to certainly to the market rate in some of the sub-markets within the affordable housing, we've got a good set of products here to give them. I did have a conversation with a member of the Planning Commission. He called me because we know each other. And, I said, he wanted to know how feasible this is. Well, my crystal ball for 10 years isn't any better than any of the other of you. But I did talk about the market study, sent him a copy of the Maxfield study. And that's what I would say is this report plus the Maxfield study, and that 992 in affordable housing that comes from Met Council. It was approved by the comp plan. That's kind of like what they think is an achievable goal, and that 1804, it would be the ideal as far as affordable housing, but that's how I would go at it.
I don't think there's anything wrong with outlining our goals and strategies, and in the discussion of that, identifying where the strengths and disagreements, identifying that there were strengths and disagreements on each piece, right? It brings reality to it. It brings realism. They get that it was a hard thing to do based upon the input they gave us at that one lone city council meeting. And the bottom line is, speaking for myself, right? And you guys all know this, I am not a big supporter of this report. And I'm happy to give you the reasons why. I don't think it's necessary here, but that's where I stand. And I do think they expected consensus from us. In my conversations with Kevin Staunton, that was his overwhelming, singular, that was his first question. So maybe we go in and somehow figure out how to address that appropriately. Not up front, but in the presentation somewhere.
I'm fine with Joe's recommendation that we describe our process and explain that everything was debated and voted, and this represents the culmination of that sometimes contentious process. And I don't think we need to go in and say, well, on this one, the vote was 4-3, and on that one, it was 5-2. So clearly there was a little bit more support for the 5-2 than there was for the 4-3, whereas there was one more that was at 7-0. So that's clearly the strongest of our recommendations. I think that level of detail is not helpful.
I can see, I'm reading my email you sent out, Steve, my number 5, and I can see why you read it the way you're reading it. That's not how I meant it. So,
okay.
So I like what seems to be gaining a little momentum here. My first item was a brief statement regarding the work of the task force staff and consultant, and maybe we can weave in some of the things Steve or Joe has said. I think that's an appropriate way of doing it. So let me state again for the record, my intent is not airing dirty laundry to take anything away from the report.
Great.
But I'm having a little panic here because I'm looking at my calendar and I can't find, was the invitation sent out for the presentation to HRC and planning?
For the HRRC, yes, that invitation has been sent out.
And that date is?
The 17th.
17th, okay.
Of November.
At 7 o'clock. You'll get another invitation. You should be getting another. I sent you a placeholder invitation.
Oh, you know what? I just found it. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to say something in terms of the process. And I'm going to use the analogy of when you are making a sausage, the process is ugly and that. So we are in the process of creating the sausage for this report. So I don't think that the person who gets the sausage at the end of the day wants to be really interested in knowing how ugly the ingredients were pulled together to create that sausage. But I still am hung up on, if we weren't trusted with that process, why were we asked to sit on this task force even? If we have to go into the minutia of explaining what we did, why we did it, it's redundant. If they ask specifically, we can respond, but just giving the whole entire process of how we voted, I think that's not appropriate. It insults my intelligence that somebody didn't trust I could be able to come up with something. And of course, all of us have very diverse background. If they believe that we all agreed, that is on them. That's not on us. There's disagreement, definitely. So.
I would agree. I don't think we need, I think that's great information to put in the report in an addendum, so there's transparency, easy transparency. Steve's right. Some wonk could go and listen to all of our meetings and fall asleep 48 times as they got through them. But for just simple transparency, putting it in the report somewhere as an addendum would probably be very good practice. But for the report to the HRRC, I don't think we need to detail who agreed to what. But I think it's fine to say this was a spirited discussion for this particular goal or strategy. We spent, a significant amount of time in very good dialogue, and we interviewed X number of people, and we created subgroups. I think that's good process that they should be that they should be happy that occurred, particularly in the environment we were in, where we couldn't do it the way we wanted to and solicit residential feedback or enough or more residential feedback. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that don't dwell on it, but certainly outline that as part of the process, or outline it as part of when we're going through the goals and recommendations and what they meant and where we got hung up and where we all felt very strongly about and was easy to accomplish.
So I like the idea of talking about the process, the spirited debates. I mean, I think that and the fact that we're not all in a mind meld. I mean, to me, I think I would be disappointed if this report was 100% consensus, because I think it would be kind of a lame report. I mean, if you get to something that all this many people agrees on, we're going to have like 4 things in the report. To spend 18 months and come down to 4 things where we have a unanimous agreement is, to me, a waste of time. So I think saying, we had spirited debates, we had internal disagreements, but these are the process. And then I think once we get past the history or whatever, kind of the big picture of what we did, when we're presenting the strategies and goals, I don't think it serves us or makes us look good to go through and say, well, this person thought this and this, and Dan, I know this isn't what you meant, but this is what other people are saying in this conversation. That I think we should present our work with pride and unity. And if we go through and while we're presenting our strategy, say, yeah, well, some people didn't like this one. Like that, to me, that completely undermines the whole process. I'm fine with discussing up front that, of course, there was internal debate and there was multiple points of view and different whatever, I mean, our thinking on things evolved over the course of the 18 months. I think that's very reasonable and important to put in there. And I can't believe Kevin Staunton thinks that. I mean, he's a seasoned politician. And to me, it seems completely naive to think that we would all agree on anything as big and important as a report like this. I don't think the council's going to agree. So
they will agree.
So
but they'll get to some vote, right? They'll eventually get to
as did we. As did we. And so that's
right.
As Steve outlined, that's the process. That's the government and the country that we live in, and we're following that process. That's what it is. So it's the same with the national election. You might not be happy with the results, but it's time. Everybody needs to accept them and move on. And I feel like it's the same with this report. And I'm sad to hear, Joe, that after all this time that you don't like this report because, obviously I don't agree with everything in it, but I'm proud of the work that we did. And I think that's, it's unfortunate that you feel that way.
Okay, so we probably need to move toward who's actually preparing this presentation. I had the impression that Dan and Bernadette were working with Stephanie, and Stephanie would provide the template and they would provide the words. And if that's not the right understanding, we should clarify that.
I have sent you all, I realized my first email was the PowerPoint that actually it got amended. So then I sent a follow-up email with a later version of the joint meeting PowerPoint, the FISTA 5 table summary, and the meeting link for Tuesday. So you have a template. If you want, I can share a screen if that would be
Great.
helpful.
That'd be
Okay.
great.
Okay, let me pull it up. All right, I'm having technical issues. Hold on. Okay, now I can do that. Okay, so here's the template that we use, and it's all can be, modified for however you want it. We had an outline, what your charge was. Since then, you have had 45 meetings. Some of your lit review. I think the Planning Commission, HRRC, you may have slightly different presentations. Because I don't know, these are a team of your colleagues. They may be interested in some of this, but I think they're going to want to know more what the goals and strategies are rather than all that went into it and the process. I think the HRA would be more interested in the process and what all went into it, more so than the commissions. I may be wrong, but I'm just saying that it may be a shorter presentation for the commissions. They may just want to get into the meat of the report. So this is going to have to change because you went about it differently because we came up with more of the goals and strategies. So this could be goals and strategies section. You could still have some of this, like context. You still have community drivers in there because that's part of the report is the whole context in which the goals and strategies are placed. This, I think, is probably, it might need to be tweaked, but still relevant.
Stephanie, I don't think anyone was expecting us to reuse this report that was created or this presentation that was created months ago.
No.
I was suggesting we would use this format as a template, and then there may be some charts that we can use directly, but for the most part, it's all going to be new. It'll just be on this City of Edina template.
No, I agree. I just don't know how to work on this in a group.
Yeah. How about well, there's just, first of all, I agree that the first meeting they're going to be interested in less things than in the HRA. If there's, there was nothing specific said here, but if I can get some feedback that we're in agreement that the opening will be about the process, talk about the spirited debates. I can draft that part and distribute it. We all have to sign off on it. And then maybe the goals and strategies, just present them and let them ask questions. Tom?
I'm kind of thinking too, the first meeting we're going to have, we're going to have the planning people, the planning commission, and they'll want to know what impact it might be on their function. And the human rights group, I think they'll want to know about housing for minorities or low-income people or people with disabilities. So you may want to somehow build that into this version of the presentation, just kind of gear it toward the audience that you have. Because like I said, I did talk to one of the planning commissioners yesterday. He reached out to me And so, they're going to be interested in one set of issues and the other another. So that might be something that you and Bernadette would.
It would be very helpful if you'd send that out in an email to everybody so we have that to work off of. And if there's anybody else that's
Okay.
thoughts like that, send them to everybody.
What are we?
Go ahead.
What are we asking anything of the HRA? Are we asking them to do anything? Or is this simply an informational presentation?
We are asking them to accept the report. And then what will come from it is that they would guide staff to incorporate into their future work plans. But the HRA itself won't do anything. They'll accept it. And then they will want, the implementation of it will come from staff, and then that would go back to the HRA for approval.
So we're asking them to accept this report and to recommend it to the council for.
No, they wouldn't recommend to the council. The HRA wouldn't recommend to the council because they are, in fact, the council. They're the same people. They would recommend that staff or direct staff to review and incorporate into their work plans. And then the work plans are approved by council.
As a point of information, our meeting on the 17th, that is to the Planning Commission and the HRRC.
Correct.
And that presentation is for their information only. They don't have a standing as far as accepting or not accepting the report. Is that correct, Stephanie? That
is correct. What they would do is, I'll put my video back on. I wanted this to be your meeting, so I took my video off. They may have comments and feedback, like they may have questions, what went behind this thought, or they may say, I have no idea what they'll say. So with the Planning Commission, some of this has to do with zoning changes and things. And so I think a lot of that piece of the report is going to end up on their work plan. So they may have some comments about that and some questions and clarity about, or they may say, yes, this is something that we think is important and we'll add to their 2021 work plan has already been established. So they may say this is something that we'll start working on and it'll be fully incorporated in our 2022 work plan. So they may just provide some feedback.
And then we are meeting the day after to discuss whatever feedback they might have and to discuss the plan for the HRA meeting.
Right. Planning for the HRA meeting, some of that's today. Some of it is discussing their feedback. If it's bountiful, that may take up the whole time. If they're just like, okay, thank you, and then send you on your way, then it'll be a short discussion. And then we can talk about, we can review some of the edits that you had proposed that merit address. If they tear it apart and say, oh my gosh, you guys have missed the boat, there is no way we wanted you to, I'm totally making this up, okay? We wanted you to get rid of single family zoning. Why didn't you get rid of single family zoning? Then you can, on the 18th, you can address, like the Planning Commission proposed. I'm totally making this up for all viewers. I'm just coming up with a dramatic example that then you can say, we did not want to touch single family zoning, and then you can respond to it. And that's what we'll talk about on the 18th. So I don't know how they're going to react to this.
Steve?
Just a couple of process questions. One, do you need assistance developing the PowerPoint? I'm happy to help develop the PowerPoint if you just need somebody to do the mechanical part of putting the words onto the chart. So that's one. And then in the meeting, my thought was that you and Bernadette were going to be both presenting and fielding any questions and providing a response. And the rest of us would be there to be observers. Does anybody have a different understanding than that?
That was my understanding.
That is my understanding as well.
And mine.
Me too.
And in fact, we should probably clarify that, right? That Bernadette and Dan are speaking on behalf of the task force.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
So, here's a proposal for getting to a presentation. If everybody would distribute by the end of today, send an email saying, here's the things that I think should be in it, like I asked Tom to, then I'll do a first draft Saturday and get it off by the end of the day Saturday, and then everybody can get their input. And we've done a number of times. I assume we can get to a document that we all agree on.
I think the presentation that was given to the council on May the 5th is a pretty good starting point. Stephanie, could you distribute a copy of that to us?
I did already. It's in it should be in your inbox.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Can I get some more? I made a proposal. Can I get some more feedback from the group, whether they like that, don't like it, have another idea?
I think it's great, Dan. I thought your email, if we just condensed the last 2 points of your original email and made it just one presentation about our conclusions without talking about which ones were more strongly supported than others, was a fine start.
Okay.
So if we take the May 5th presentation, take a few things out of there that we think are appropriate background for this audience, and then follow the format of your email, add a couple things that Tom's recommending, I think we'll be 95% of the way toward the structure of the presentation.
My initial reaction is that PowerPoint is not a good starting point, but I'll take a look at it. There's just so much in there about so many things, but that's my 2 cents. So, the agreement, everyone who wants initial input into the presentation, will give me an email by the end of the day. We'll get all of us an email by the end of the day. So please feel free to respond to someone else's email if you see something you like or don't like and want to change your email. And then by the end of the Saturday, I'll distribute a draft, and then we can take it from there.
Yes.
Just to be clear, when I suggested taking a look at the May 5th presentation, if we only have 10 minutes presentation time, that's going to be just a handful of slides.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
clearly do not want to repeat all of May 5th.
Right.
But it's nice to have a slide format. I mean, like just formatted and professional looking, so we're not just whipping it out of PowerPoint. That's kind of what I meant. Not the content or what's on the slides, but just we can just type over the words that are there. I don't think we should have more than 5 slides, in my personal opinion, but for 10 minutes.
I agree.
So, are you concluded? Will this be like the shortest task force meeting ever? Because I don't know what more you can do. I mean, it seems like the work now is spending the rest of the next hour plus with your ideas and comments and sending them to Dan and Bernadette, or sending them to everyone, circulating to everyone.
Yep.
Okay. Then we meet again next Tuesday night.
There's been some emails primarily going to Merit, just pointing out things that people believe need to be fixed in the report. Do we have a is Merit just going to handle those and send email responses back, and that's the way that process is going to work?
Yes. She's on. We have a file of all the responses. She will incorporate, and then when we meet on the 18th, next Wednesday, not only we will talk about some of those comments. If she doesn't respond to them via email, we'll talk about some of those comments and see how they're incorporated, as well as feedback from the night before.
Okay. Oh, there's Merit.
Good morning.
Good angel.
Good morning.
Yeah, right now I'm going through and addressing all of Norm's items, which included a lot of good catches. So thank you, Norm. And so what I'm doing is just responding as I have before with text, and I'm keeping a redlined version. Any change that's been made since the version that was sent to HARC and PC, I have as a single version. Track changes such as adding the paragraph, the note that Dan had sent yesterday, which I then showed what that looked like. So you'll be able to see every change that's happened from that version.
Merit, do you know what it looks like with the background you have there? It looks like you've transitioned. You're speaking to us from the afterlife.
Well, task force kind of killed me. No, I also want to say I shared with
She's
Stephanie
coming from on high.
this morning as I was, thinking about the emails I'd gotten, Dan's find and some of the stuff Norm sent. I thought of this quote I often think of, which goes something like, "Never ascribe to malice that which can be explained by incompetence." So I would rather you think I'm incompetent than malicious. Anyway, yeah, I'll just keep recording things.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Anything else? You have your homework, as Stephanie said.
All right. Thank you all. Happy Friday the 13th.
It'll be a good day.
It will be. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Good day.
Bye-bye.